Number 10. The Texas River. About 35 miles northeast of San Antonio, authorities discovered the body of Cassandra Kendrick on a Sunday night in June 2021. They found her floating in the Guadalupe River. This woman died a hero, rescuing two children who got stuck in the brutal current of the Texas River and couldn't get out. She saved the kids, but the raging current washed her away. She could have gotten out after rescuing the children if she hadn't doubled back and tried to rescue their father as well, who had failed to rescue his kids in the first place. Sadly, all the adults involved were lost to the river. Rescuers found the father after Cassandra, also having drowned. And as it's terrible for the father who died trying to protect his kids, it's also devastating for Cassandra, the 22-year-old woman who had stepped up to save the day when nobody asked her to. And the poor kids, both of them now fatherless and traumatized for life. The accident tore the two families apart, all because everyone wanted to have a nice, relaxing day down at the river. The only silver lining is that at least the kids are safe and sound. Number 9. A volcanic rescue. Angela Glover died trying to save her dogs. She was in Tonga when an undersea volcano erupted in early 2022 and sent massive waves crashing into the shore. Angela, who worked as an animal shelter operator and was 50 years old, a native of Brighton in England, had been living in Tonga with her husband for 5 years. When the tsunami hit, she and her husband raced home to collect their dogs. It was the most important thing for them to do, but unfortunately, it didn't work out for anyone. The tsunami devastated the coastline right where their house was. They got stuck trying to get to the dogs, and the tsunami washed everything away right before their eyes, including Angela. She was last seen by her husband James, clinging to floating debris as the water took her. The tsunami was just too intense for her husband to do anything. He couldn't even look for her until the floodwaters had receded. And then, much to James's dismay, it was he who stumbled upon her waterlogged body. And as much as I hate to say it, they also lost the dogs in the flood. It left James with no pets, no wife, and an obliterated house. Number 8. Mowed down. Brittany Walker Marty was 30 years old when she died after being thrown off a moving van and run over. And it was all because of her psychotic ex and trying to save her 10-month-old infant. On February 9, 2021, police in Arizona responded to a domestic violence call. This was in the town of Peoria. When they got there, they saw Brittany hanging off the side of a Chrysler minivan as it sped away with her baby inside it. The man who stole the minivan was Eric Mays, the father of the child. Police saw this whole thing unfold, with the mother so desperate to protect her baby that she threw herself onto the moving vehicle. But she was no match for the speed of the minivan and was thrown off of it. Then Eric turned the minivan around, ran over Brittany, and sped away from the police. The cops, for whatever bizarre reason, didn't give chase. Instead, they put out an Amber Alert. And several hours after the terrifying incident, the child wound up on the doorstep of a random house in Phoenix, miles away. The cops got a call about an abandoned child at 1 a.m. He hadn't hurt the baby, named Abel, and he was in good condition. The police found the van about half a mile away from the house, and they arrested Eric following a foot pursuit. He confessed to what he had done, and they charged him with first-degree murder, kidnapping, and child endangerment. Because sadly, Brittany died when he ran her over with the minivan. She died trying to protect her child from a maniac. Number 7. Left in the street. Ambulances rushed two men to the hospital in the early hours of the morning in September 2021. The men had suffered major injuries following a brutal beating on a dimly lit street in England. But these men weren't the victims of random violence. They were heroes who took a major thumping to protect two young women in distress. What we know from the police and the women involved is that the two men were walking through the city of Stoke-on-Trent just before 5 a.m. That was when they heard the cries for help. There was a group of men bullying two young girls. Not just bullying, but getting aggressive and violent, getting ready to do something heinous. The two men intervened, giving the girls time to run off and get help. Because of their bravery, these two young girls walked away with no physical or psychological damage. Everyone in the community hailed the pair as courageous heroes. Some even said that they deserved medals for the danger they put themselves in. But being a hero isn't a job that pays. One man had to be rushed to the hospital to get facial reconstructive surgery. his face shattered when one assailant stomped on it repeatedly. The other hero was also in terrible shape, although both recovered. And last we heard, the police did not catch the vicious monsters responsible for the horrible attack. Number 6. Saving his own dog. A man in West Memphis, Tennessee, watched helplessly from the parking lot of his apartment building as flames licked up the roof and raged inside the windows. There wasn't much he could do about the apartment going up in flames, but what bothered Jared Martin was that he could hear his dog crying desperately for help from inside the burning building. This happened in 2003, and you will not believe the award Jared got for taking matters into his own hands and rescuing his poor, helpless friend. He was unsatisfied with what the fire department was doing. They didn't seem to care at all about his dog, and so Jared climbed up the balcony through the flames to where a second-story apartment was slowly smoldering. He smashed through the door, saved his beloved puppy, and made it back down onto solid ground. When he returned to the parking lot with his living, breathing dog, the police put Jared in handcuffs. They arrested him on 2 misdemeanors, disorderly conduct and reckless endangerment. The police defended their arrest by saying if Jared had been harmed during his rescue attempt, more firefighters would have been at risk to save Jared. Number 5. Disarmed and dangerous. An Army veteran in Georgia has sued 3 police officers in the city of Kennesaw. He says the police fabricated evidence to make a revenge arrest against him, all in response to some heroic antics he pulled at a sports bar on June 26, 2017. According to Matthew Solon, he was out with a couple of friends at Matthew's sports bar when they got into a confrontation with a drunk and belligerent man. His name is Dwight Cooper, and he threatened Matthew and his friends with a gun. Dwight had been drinking too much, he was unstable, and he had no place being anywhere public. As a military man, Matthew knew exactly how to handle the situation. He disarmed Dwight, taking his gun away, and then he called the police. But when the cops arrived, they arrested both men and charged them with felony possession of a firearm during the commission of a crime. Officer Joshua Hale wrote in his report that Matthew disobeyed direct police orders when they arrived on the scene. He also said that after he disarmed Dwight, Matthew struck him in the head with his gun. Matthew says this last part is an obvious lie. Matthew claims in his lawsuit that the police fabricated the statement just to arrest him because when they arrived, he was critical of the way they handled the situation. Matthew did everything the military trained him to do. He took the weapon, unloaded it, put down the belligerent drunk, called the authorities, and even gave the drunk man medical attention. And when the cops showed up, they treated him like a sleazy criminal. And when he said he didn't like the way he was being treated, they made up a crime to arrest him with. Number 4. The Super Cop. Abba Kyari is one of the most famous cops in all of Nigeria. He's been called a super cop, a hero, and an actual warrior for the Nigerian people. He's become extremely popular in Kenya, a real adored public figure. But all that changed in 2022, when police arrested this hero cop for his involvement in a cartel. Police arrested Abba Kyari and 4 other men for corruption, conspiracy, unprofessional conduct, and illicit drug trafficking. It was the US FBI that linked him to the money launderer called Hush Puppy. His real name is Ramon Abbas, a major Instagram influencer who is currently awaiting sentencing in the US for his participation in cyber crimes. Now get ready for some intense information on African drug cartels. We're all familiar with Mexican drug cartels and the gangs of Latin America, but something similar exists across the ocean. This heroic cop, once the most decorated police officer in all of Nigeria, was involved in an illicit drug operation, moving from Brazil into Ethiopia, then into Nigeria. South American cocaine has even found its way into the lands of Africa. In the end, the hero cop has been suspended, pending internal investigations. He was a cop by day and a ruthless drug smuggler by night. Number 3. The El Paso Reward. Chris Grant, the hero of El Paso, was supposed to be honored at the White House in September 2019. The media hailed him as a hero because of his actions during a shooting that took place at a Walmart in Texas over that summer. But according to the police, Chris wasn't exactly the hero the media made him out to be. Let's look at what happened during the incident. You've probably already heard about El Paso in 2019. A gunman walked into the Walmart supercenter and killed 23 people, the deadliest attack on Latinos in American history. It was Patrick Wood Crucius who committed this despicable act, and while it was awful, people thought it could have been worse if not for Chris Grant. During the shooting, Chris tried to draw the gunman's attention away from his intended victims by throwing bottles at him. It wasn't enough to stop the shooting, but he may have saved some lives by at least distracting Patrick. And for his bravery, the gunman shot him twice. But wait a minute, that never happened. When Chris showed up at the White House to get his medal for being a hero, the Secret Service arrested him. According to the El Paso Police Department, who checked the videotapes at Walmart, Chris didn't do squat. He lied about being a hero. His actions were purely done for self-preservation, not to save the innocent. Plus, he had an undisclosed warrant out for his arrest. He was a criminal and a liar. Chris went from being a hero being praised by the president to being one of the most hated men in the country in about 3 weeks. Number 2. The real costume superhero. In 2011, superheroes were even bigger than they are today. Superheroes were so big that they appeared in the real world. One of these costume vigilantes was a self-proclaimed hero by the name of Phoenix Jones. And while he may have looked like he was ready to protect Gotham City from the Joker, that wasn't at all what happened. Phoenix Jones tried to be a heroic vigilante. The Seattle police arrested him after confronting a group of unruly men and women who had gotten into a brawl on October 9, 2011. Phoenix Jones didn't hang them up with his spider webs, but used good old-fashioned pepper spray. As cool as it is to think about a guy in a costume pepper spraying people who aren't behaving, it's seriously against the law. Police arrested the hero and pulled his mask off his head. They identified him as Benjamin John Francis Fedor. But get this, Benjamin was only 23 years old, a teacher who worked with autistic children. He just wanted to make the world a better and safer place for the kids he taught, and for all the kids in America. But when he was unmasked, Benjamin got fired from his job. He was publicly humiliated, and he was labeled a criminal. Number 1. The hero of Hotel Rwanda. Hollywood portrayed Paul Rusesabagina in the movie Hotel Rwanda, a retelling of the disaster of the 1994 genocide. Paul was a hero who saved the lives of over 1,200 people at a hotel in Kigali during the fighting. He had allowed over 1,200 Tutsis, the people being hunted by the Hutus, to stay in the rooms and avoid death. The Hutus murdered over 800,000 people during the genocide, and Paul did the best he could to save the few he was able. There's no denying that he was a hero. And yet, the Rwandan government arrested him and brought him up on terror charges. The government denounced Paul as a liar, saying he saved no one. But Paul used his fame to speak out openly against the Rwandan government, specifically President Paul Kagame. He's been so openly against the government that he hasn't lived in Rwanda since 1996. He moved to Belgium, then to Texas in the United States. But in August 2020, as he was on his way from the US to Dubai, he was kidnapped and brought to Rwanda. Then, authorities arrested him on charges of terrorism, with the government saying he was behind an extremist group of Democrats operating abroad. They sentenced him to 25 years in prison. And this story just keeps getting crazier. The Rwandan government admitted later that they had been operating on US soil to track Paul, trick him into traveling, and then kidnap him. They drugged him, brought him to a different country, tortured, and then sentenced him to 25 years behind bars. He's been in jail now for nearly 2 years, and his family and international organizations are helpless to get him out. Would you rather be the hero and be punished for your bravery, or just stay out of the situation and let it happen? Let us know in the comments, and thanks for watching today's video. For more great stuff, be sure to hit that subscribe button and come back soon for more awesome content.